Our 9:15 a.m. item, 6.3, consideration of submittal of public comments in response to PG&E's initial draft surrender application and conceptual decommissioning plan. Mr. Sullivan.
Good morning. Patrick Sullivan, Treasurer Tax Collector. I will be introducing this item on behalf of Matthew Rothstein, Chief Deputy Administrative Officer. He was not able to join us this morning. So he had prepared a set of comments that I'm going to go ahead and read, and then I will do my best to address any questions your board may have as well. So, as you are aware, Pacific Gas and Electric Company released its initial draft surrender application and conceptual decommissioning plan Friday, November 17th. Unfortunately, this draft plan is in many respects defined by what it lacks. First and foremost, no concern is demonstrated for residents and property owners in the Lake Pillsbury area, and the loss of personal investments and property value decommissioning would undoubtedly bring, nor the Tule elk and other animal populations that have adapted to the current Lake Pillsbury dependent ecosystem over 100 plus years. Further, the rapid dam removal scenario, which requires management of 115,000 tons of dam materials and 21 to 35 million cubic yards of sediment, would constitute the largest disposal project in the history of Lake County and carry great potential for environmental disaster. Yet alarmingly, PG&E has not adequately consulted Lake County. A conceptual restoration plan is also promised by June 3, 2024, but no commitment is made in the draft plan to including the County of Lake or Lake Pillsbury Alliance, for example, in this planning process, or gathering robust input from affected parties. Your board has remained steadfastly opposed to decommissioning and removal of Scott Dam. Proceeding with decommissioning would present serious risks. As you are aware, this document states several of those concerns. 67% of voters in the state of California, less than 10 years ago, voted for more water storage, not less. Two of the largest wildfire events in California's history have occurred over just the past 5 years in the Lake Pillsbury area. What if the lake had not been there in 2018 or 2020? This initial draft plan clearly places PG&E's bottom line ahead of the investments made by private property owners, and that should concern all Californians. For a review of the changes here, since publication of your board's agenda, multiple edits were made in consideration of November 2021 Stillwater reports that estimated the sediment presently trapped behind Scott Dam at 21 to 35 million cubic yards. Those changes can be found on pages 1, 3, and 4 of the letter. The fourth bullet point on page 1 now reads, management of the estimated 21 to 35 million cubic yards of sediment built up behind Scott Dam is not discussed in detail. Only the 12 million cubic yards PG&E hopes sufficient winter rains can flush into the Eel River are given attention, despite potential for serious environmental complications. The third paragraph on page 3 now reads, particularly given indications that at least a large portion of the 115,000 cubic yards of total dam materials and the 21 to 35 million cubic yards of sediment may effectively be dumped in Lake County for an undetermined period, PG&E has a responsibility to engage the County Administrative Office and other appropriate Lake County staff, and the fact PG&E staff have not done so long before now is deeply unsettling. The fourth paragraph on page 5, first sentence, now reads, 21 to 35 million cubic yards of sediment currently trapped behind Scott Dam also carry the potential for environmental disaster. PG&E's rapid dam removal scenario hinges on adequate rainfall during wet seasons to properly disperse the sediment, leaving the future state of the riverbed in serious question. Recent years of drought, coupled with climate change, make reliance on such a plan irresponsible. Should the rapid dam removal option proceed, millions of cubic yards of sediment will be disturbed and potentially destabilized. Without certainty, they will be flushed out. Robust conversation with Lake County is likewise needed on this front. Staff recommends your board approve this letter and authorize the chair to sign.
I didn't see it on the copy that Johanna has up, that last portion. You look behind you, she's got it open. You said it was the first paragraph on page 5. It
says the fourth paragraph on page 5?
Yeah, we don't have a...
No fourth paragraph.
There is no fourth paragraph. No, it's page 5.
Can you scroll up a little bit? I wonder.
I didn't see it anywhere.
So the 21 to 35 million is referenced on there. Let me see if I have something more recent from Matthew. 1 second.
Yeah, if you can send it to her so she can just copy and paste it in since she has it open as a Word document. That might be easy. While he's doing that, any questions or comments?
Yes.
Supervisor Crandall?
Patrick, thank you for covering for Matthew on this, and thank you for being a part of this process, since, I know we've been dealing with it. Our board has spent a lot of time in the last year tending to this matter. We desire to ensure our comments to FERC can ensure there is a reevaluation and a depth assessment or a deep assessment of our perspective rather than what's being promoted. We feel that, we would like FERC to hold PG&E accountable, as it is obvious this was a concerted effort to streamline and fast-track this process as a tactic to manipulate the narrative that decommissioning is the best option. So we obviously, in our previous meetings with Russian River Water Forum, Potter Valley Ad Hoc, and all of the other meetings have given arguments as to why we don't agree with that, and are hoping that we can ensure that FERC hears us and holds PG&E accountable, as opposed to just kind of like rubber stamping everything. We know that there's been obviously things done in the background, because every time we meet there seems to be some sort of statement out, or all of a sudden another group's formed and things like that. So yeah, I really hope this, we worked hard on this letter. County Council has been consistently doing their due diligence to help us with the statements and what we're promoting to FERC. So we've had multiple meetings, Supervisor Sabatier, myself, Patrick, Matthew, County Council, the CAO, and there's a lot of things that we have to just jump onto because of it, because at the last minute at times we're given an opportunity to talk, but it's just that opportunity to check a box, we feel, and so we're hoping that FERC can hear that, because in meeting with some of these folks and some of these agencies, their perspective is that we have been in agreement with specific things that are said, that we have been on board when we have to explain that's not the case, and give them a little more detail as to what we have been doing and what we've been saying. So I'll stop there, because I know you have things to add too, Supervisor Sabatier. So
I was going to highlight, we do, that version that Matthew sent does have it. I think just the citation of where it is different.
Okay.
It's on a different page, so I can highlight that when it goes back up.
Okay. So yeah, not way too many meetings regarding this, but very important as well. I do want to highlight, we did receive a kind letter from Congressman Thompson in speaking up for the needs of Lake County, and for us not to be ignored by FERC or any of the other groups that we're working with to figure out how we're going to go about this whole process, including Plan A, which is to keep it. And I think that this letter kind of, I don't want to say it straddles the fence of both Plan A and Plan B, but if PG&E can't meet its responsibility to the public and to the Lake Pillsbury area, then it can't take down the dam. It has to meet its responsibilities 100%. And unfortunately, what we believed PG&E was going to do, this is actually even probably worse than what we thought that they would provide. There are zero details, and they are pretty much saying they're going to use it as a dumping ground for the residual material from the dam decommissioning, which is just a god-awful perspective of how much they care about that area. So we're definitely not happy at all with what PG&E has provided. We have been told through other avenues that this is kind of the light version of their true final draft. Why they would do it that way, I don't know. From what I understand, they wanted to hear some public comment and our comments in order to then come back with the better final draft. But this is a very dismal attempt at showing that they care about the environment. They just want to get out of here, and they want to no longer lose money on the dam. And what the consequences are to the environment and the people that are going to be impacted seems to be consequential at best. They just don't care. Inconsequential at best from their perspective. So I think this letter is well drafted. I think we have to send something, and I believe December 22nd is when we need to submit this by. But I'd love to hear from the public to see what we might be missing, or possibly what we might be saying that is incorrect that we need to fix. And unless there's a
not to mention, The ratepayers paying for it.
Unfortunately, that was approved. The rate increase that PG&E just went through at the CPUC does include the decommissioning funding, which, if that's what they were looking for, was the funding to do what is described, is a pretty horrible, unfortunate amount. But at the same time, I don't want to see our PG&E bills go up to the amount that would actually save Lake Pillsbury area from an environmental disaster. So, you have a pen up before I open up public?
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot to unpack in this letter, and I want to highlight a couple things that are in there and maybe a couple things that aren't in there. But I am interested in hearing from the public. So, to the extent a deadline exists, I guess it's within the FERC process. So, as stated here, no, that's as stated in PG&E's letter or as stated in PG&E's decommissioning plan?
This is actually operating outside of the FERC process. It's sort of an odd arrangement. PG&E is doing this voluntarily to secure public comment in advance of their official FERC filing. So we're working within sort of an artificially constructed PG&E timeframe. This is completely their, I guess, additional attempt at public outreach, offering this opportunity to provide comment back. It's just unfortunate it was so vague what they offered. It's left us with little to specifically address.
I guess it's not even a criticism. This is 4 or 5 pages. And there's a lot to unpack in here, and yet I guess one criticism I could offer, it's kind of vague, what our specific asks are for PG&E. So, for example, if their decommissioning plan distinguishes between a sudden removal of the dam and a phased removal of the dam, do we have a preferred alternative between those two dire alternatives? And of course, we want to assert that we would prefer to keep the dam as our plan A, but given the state of the decommissioning plan, you know, have we studied it enough from a technical standpoint that we could offer at this phase some indication as to a preferred alternative on their proposed dam removal? On page 2 of this, and I did speak with Matthew about this briefly, there are some comments about how this dam is helpful for water supply in the Russian River basin, and we're faulting PG&E for not thinking of that water supply. But I want to share some of that responsibility with the Russian River water interests, those who have formed this JPA for the dam downstream of this. So to the extent the removal of Scott Dam would impede water supplies, PG&E's plan is being done with the full knowledge of the Russian River water interests that would lay claim to these water supplies. So I just want to make sure that we're not just pointing out to PG&E how important this is, but also point out that to the extent any claim of benefit from this dam in the Russian River has been asserted by these water agencies before, they're knowingly walking away from it. Sonoma County Water and Mendo Inland Water and Power Commission are committed to doing a different project that does not include Scott Dam. So I think it's a valid argument. I don't think it's an argument at all for PG&E because PG&E is not in the water supply business, and because the water suppliers that benefit from the current dam apparently are not interested in keeping Scott Dam. So I think we overemphasize that point. To the extent we do discuss the environmental damages that could be created by the decommissioning, I think a specific call out to the CEQA-NEPA process is indicated. Nothing that I've seen so far says that the decommissioning would be exempt from those processes, and so a more detailed plan involving CEQA and NEPA might be a good call out for future comments, but I can't really ding it in this particular letter. And finally, it's kind of tangential, but I went to Blue Ribbon yesterday, and I heard from yet another person who just assured me, using whatever knowledge base he had, that this dam is toast based on the seismic safety issue alone. And one thing that isn't in this letter that I think could be highlighted, I'm not going to hold it up today because I think this issue will come back on its own, is the fact we're taking assumptions from PG&E based on the seismic risk and the recent lowering of the gate and the recent agreement of Division of Dam Safety that that's a good short-term measure, but neither PG&E nor DODS or anybody else is willing at this point to crack open whatever protection of privacy is going with dam safety issues and tell us, is the state of seismic risk such that this dam could not possibly be fixed? Is the state of seismic risk so great that partial decommissioning is no longer an option? It's somewhere between we lowered the gates and that's fine for now, cross your fingers, or it's somewhere closer to an Orville failure kind of a scenario in which the public should be advised of that. And the fact that we have these security measures for dams that make perfect sense, but the greater threat to this dam is not some random terrorist with a stick of dynamite. It's PG&E with a bulldozer crew saying we're going to take out this dam. So when we are at a life stage of a dam that is so late, 100 years plus, and we have known seismic issues that everyone and their dog seems to know about, but nobody will bring it out in public and tell us this dam is absolutely toast. You can't save it no matter what you want to do. Then I think to some extent we ignore what may be the most important issue of all. And I know I can't ask you to put something in this letter that we can't, or at least haven't been privy to up to this point. But I really think that is the big elephant in the room, and I wish we could do more to pry out some information to the extent possible about the true seismic safety there. And I do want to highlight and thank, from a FERC filing back in June, Friends of the Eel River for providing the most extensive analysis I've seen to date of the seismic safety of this dam. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Crandall?
Yes, and thank you for a couple of the statements you've made, Supervisor Green. I do, however, feel that PG&E is, even though they're not in the, they're not in the business of what you mentioned, I do feel that they have a liability and responsibility to ensure that safeguards are intact. They were subject to liability and lawsuit before for fire measures, for fire situations, and when they abandon and when this happens, we've shown a map before, accentuating that everywhere around that forest is subject to fire, more fuel to perpetuate against all counties that surround it. And so they should be held responsible if and when, or whatever the case may be. I don't even know if there's a better word for it, because our goal is obviously Plan A. But if it goes to the other direction and there is a fire, I feel that this should be highlighted now, so there's an understanding that when they decided to fast track this, and that's where I emphasize their responsibility. I don't mind if they take the full process, measure everything, give us the opportunity to prove seismic measures and all of the other things we're asking for, but they're fast tracking it. We know there's things being done behind closed doors. We know that there's other agendas intact. So for me, this is something that needs to be highlighted, and I don't know if it's if or when there's a fire, but I do want to highlight that because, like we said about the water, another thing, if and when there is lack of water source because of climate change, we're going to look back here and say, we told you so, sorry. And with the fish, those are one-sided unanswered questions as well, and I understand that we've beat that to death to the point where they don't even discuss it with us anymore. Only one group does when they want to file suit. So I'll stop there because I'll go on all day and night. So.
Thank you for your comments. I hear we have a lot of people in the room that want to speak on this, both in the Zoom room and here. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's start in the board chambers for public comment. Or at least I thought people wanted to speak on this. There's no need for you to raise your hands. Just line up and come on up to the microphone. And we are going to time you at 3 minutes.
And thanks for your comments, you all. And Mr. Green, I'd just like to say nothing is impossible if you work hard enough. So
and if we can start with your name, please.
So my name is Chris Reed of Lakeport, father of 4 boys. I'm not only talking to you today for them, but all of the community. Dear board members, I'm here today as a concerned citizen of our community regarding the preservation of Lake Pillsbury. While I appreciate the recent letter drafted to PG&E from the board, addressing the issues faced with the removal of the dam at Lake Pillsbury. I'm also worried to see the defense and wait-and-see approach taken by the County of Lake in regarding the preservation of Lake Pillsbury. Although you address important issues in your draft letter, I have had many conversations with residents of Lake County and Sonoma County, and have found that there is a general lack of awareness about the potential impacts in our communities resulting from the removal of the dam. Consequently, the removal of Lake Pillsbury. As a concerned citizen of Lake County, I strongly believe that the County of Lake should be more proactive and hands-on approach to exploring options for the preservation of the lake. Losing Lake Pillsbury is not an option, so let's start fighting to save the dam, thus Lake Pillsbury. Can we as a community and you as our representatives start the conversation about what resources we have to save the lake? How much would it cost? Can we work with Lake Mendocino and Sonoma County to save the lake versus Humboldt County working with Mendocino and Sonoma County to remove the dam? There are so many options to start working towards saving Lake Pillsbury for a community instead of waiting for PG&E to tell us what they're going to do. I firmly believe that an offense-like approach to preserving Lake County's cherished treasure is in the best interest of our community and needs to start now before it is too late. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this with you today. Thank you for your attention to this important issue, and I look forward to a positive and proactive response from you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Have you attended any of the Potter Valley Project meetings or any of the Russian River Water Forums or any of the Russian River?
I've talked to the Alliance, I've read about it, but unfortunately they're always when I'm working.
Okay, because a lot of what you were mentioning we've done in those forums, but appreciate your statement.
Okay, thank you.
Hello there. I'm Nancy Horton. I'm one of the 7 directors on Lake Pillsbury Alliance. I also own property in a cabin up at Lake Pillsbury Rice Fork, and I'm also a leaseholder through marriage at our cabin in Home Sites. So I have a lot of my 2 feet planted in there. One thing, I wanted to let you know I paid my property taxes early this year, so I'm all good.
Made Patrick happy.
I'm allowed up here now. I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate your passion for your county and, of course, Lake Pillsbury and the communities that surround the lake. You guys have really come a long ways. I know it's been a crazy time. I continue to be baffled by the fact that Lake County and Lake Pillsbury Alliance has been minimized since the beginning of this process 5 years ago. When Congressman Huffman convened the ad hoc committee in 2017 and the two-basin partnership was formed a few years later with a plan to basically take over the Potter Valley project from PG&E. And of course, they did have already at that point the dams out attitude. Lake County Supervisors secured the necessary funds to join the partnership, went through the whole process, and you were denied. Being that the headwaters of the Eel River originates in Lake County, with Lake Pillsbury, Scott Dam, and about 6 river miles below Scott Dam, also in Lake County, I believe that it should be, personally, I believe it should be illegal to not allow any county that contains any part of the Eel River watershed to be let me state that again. I believe that it should be illegal to not allow a county that contains any part of the Eel River watershed to be able to be a part of a partnership that makes decisions involving that county's future. Now, I agree that that would have maybe been a kind of a waste of money because of the way the partnership was already formed from the ad hoc committee, but it still was disheartening to not be allowed when you're the watershed. Well, this is what happened to Lake County, and I think that the public needs to be aware of this. It has been a humbling experience and a very steep learning curve for all of us. The knowledge that you all have gained has only increased your drive to save Lake Pillsbury. We've seen it. And I thank you so much for your time to write this strong letter of comments to PG&E. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? I'm sure there's someone else.
Always someone else.
My name is Carol Cinquini. I'm one of the directors of the Lake Pillsbury Alliance. First and foremost, I want to thank you, board, and your staff for the tremendous effort in this letter. It took a lot of man hours, women hours to put it together, and we certainly understand that. In terms of specifics, I hadn't put all of this in within my 3 minutes, but I do question on the sediment how you got to 35 million cubic yards. I'm aware from the reports of 21 million cubic yards of sediment with 12 million cubic yards subject to downstream transport. So I just tossing that out just to double check that figure. In terms of the seismic, appreciate that you brought that up, Supervisor Green. The preliminary seismic report resulted in a change of classification to fair condition. It was not changed to unsatisfactory. We do not know the status of the seismic problems with Scott Dam, but if it had been a huge risk at this point, I do think the Department of Dam Safety would have changed that label to unsatisfactory. So we'll never know until they release the information. Now I'm going to race through this to keep within my time, but I wanted to say your response addresses a multitude of concerns about the impacts of dam removal on Lake County and on the Lake Pillsbury Basin stakeholders. The absence of the environmental reports in this initial draft lead us all shooting in the dark. PG&E has not reached out to the Lake Pillsbury Alliance or our homeowner communities or recreational users and has not made no overtures to understand our concerns about the potential impacts of dam removal on our people, on our fire protection, and on the wildlife in the basin. I'm very frustrated because Lake County and Lake Pillsbury Alliance continue to be the only two groups willing to take a stand to save Lake Pillsbury. No state or federal elected officials, no state or federal agencies such as the California Department of Water Resources or their Bureau of Reclamation, no tribes, no one, no non-governmental agencies have stepped up to stand alongside us. We do appreciate Mike Thompson's efforts, his letter, that he's ensuring that we have a voice. That's the first elected official, other than Lake County supervisors, that's actually supported us in that endeavor. Last spring, PG&E and FERC were given 7 studies and technical reports by the Two Basin Partnership, a group that barred Lake County. They gave them the reports, quote, in the hopes that these studies can be used by PG&E, FERC, and interested stakeholders in helping to inform and shape the decommissioning plan submitted by PG&E and approved by FERC. This was
I'm
deliberate...
going to pause you for a second, Carol.
Yes.
Because this is Lake Pillsbury Alliance and is a partner with us at the table. I'm just checking with my partners here. I'm going to let you finish your letter, but you've already gone past your 3 minutes. So I just wanted to make that statement so that it wasn't confusing for others.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We see this as a deliberate action to expedite the decommissioning of Scott Dam. This matter is very important because they never studied alternatives to dam removal. They never studied Lake County, the impacts to Lake County. They never studied how this would affect the people, the homeowner in the area. PG&E's initial draft decommissioning plan is nothing more than an empty shell, in my personal opinion. It only addresses the facilities and the Lake Pillsbury inundation area, and it lacks any other information except 2 scenarios for dam removal that were taken from one of the studies they received from the Two Basin partner. This past Tuesday, Sonoma County Board of Supervisors authorized a joint powers agreement between Mendocino Inland Water and Power the Sonoma County, the County of Sonoma, and Sonoma County Water Agency to create the Eel Russian Project Authority, a regional entity. This JPA will allow them to engage in discussions with PG&E to include this new entity in the license surrender application, essentially to allow for ongoing water diversions from the Eel to the Russian without Scott Dam. We learned yesterday in the Russian River Water Forum that they added 4 partners: Caltrout, Humboldt County, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Trout Unlimited, and they're working out settle agreements. Round Valley Indian tribes are not part of the JPA, but they will sit on the board of directors. For all intents and purposes, the same group that barred Lake County from joining has now formed a regional entity, take over the water diversion infrastructure and the water rights of the Potter Valley Project. PG&E is going to move forward and they are planning to take those dams out without addressing, or to this point, without addressing our concerns. We must hold PG&E accountable for this. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please come up to the microphone, or I will switch over to the Zoom room. Wasn't a threat. I'll come back to you guys.
How's it going? Good morning.
Welcome.
My name is Ricardo, 19. I go to Mendocino College. I moved out here 2 years ago, and I've seen Lake Pillsbury Alliance in Potter Valley. I've seen the signs. I've done my own research, just kind of trying to figure out what's actually taking place, trying to find out both sides of things. We can't always get that. I see that PG&E is lacking on that end to show support for wildlife, for the homeowners, for anybody but themselves. That's what it looks like on my end. I know that's my perspective on it. I can't do much about it. But I just want to speak on my behalf. I've been out to Lake Pillsbury. I've enjoyed its leisures. I've seen the elk out there. They're gorgeous. We love the wildlife. I just want to see that the Mendocino National Forest is protected, whether that be the entire forest, Lake Pillsbury included. I don't know how we can get government funding for such a endeavor. Protection of this area is very important in my eyes, and probably in many other people's eyes. I just don't see it as a logical solution to just take out a dam that's providing so much to many different areas, whether that be Potter Valley, Mendocino, Lake County. Like, I understand you guys have revenue off of that, but we just, there's more to look at from different avenues, whether that be governmental. I don't know what the time frame is as far as everything right now. I'm just relying on information that I've been reading up on. The letters that you guys have in the agenda. I'm looking for information as far as how we can help. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you want further information, I would say link up with either Supervisor Crandall or myself. We're involved in these conversations sometimes 3-4 times a week, depending on who's available for us to speak with, from the state to the federal to our local partners as well. So please reach out to us. You can find our business cards right on the outside of the admin office. Be happy to speak with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Aaron Davis of Lakeport. I just want to point out to that, it seems like to me regarding the sediment that what PG&E considers to be a problem to try to maintain the dam, they're basically just handing off the problem down to Lake Mendocino. It's going to push sediment into that lake. Removing that dam is also going to, eliminate water that's going to provide Lake Mendocino with water for the whole year. There's a drought year, it'll dry up too. It's a beautiful place, and I'd hate to see it go. That's it.
Thank you very much for your comment. Now, sediment, the sediment portion makes no sense, especially with the wild weathers that we've been experiencing. We just had a conversation yesterday where if there's massive flood or atmospheric river, then no, that's too much sediment going down, and that will hurt. There's so many unknowns versus what we have now. There's a lot more knowns to better understand how we can figure out the problem. And in my opinion, sorry for interjecting in public comment, the major problem as to why most people don't want to see the dam there, so there is a law that you cannot put up new dams on the Eel River, but this one's already there. But with the Endangered Species Act, with the salmon, that means that you will get nonstop lawsuits until you can figure out how to fix the salmon problem of being able to reach the headwaters past the dam. That cost has been prohibitive, hence why the first group that got together weren't able to continue moving forward. But it really just comes down to that, and then destroying a infrastructure to solve a problem for the ESA, which just creates brand new problems for all of us to have to figure out. And I think that there's a better way to make this work, especially in light of the weather phenomenons we have, where it is unknown as to how this is going to work, especially for the 600,000 people downstream that rely on drinking water. We could pretty much figure out where we will be if the dam comes down. It's not a good place that we'll be, but the others, they rely on it in a different way that will be absolutely catastrophic, in my opinion, and in our opinion, and how we've been talking to all of our groups. And that was a statement we made in the last Russian River Forum meeting, which is kind of comical that they seem to have shut it down after we made our statements, but I'll leave that at that. Sorry to take up public comment. Who wants to speak next on this item in the board chambers? All right, let's go ahead and Zoom room. Johanna, if you can provide us the name of the individual you are unmuting.
Okay, so the first person is Brian Clack.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, first, I appreciate you guys standing up to PG&E and the fish fanatics. In my opinion, they're environmental terrorists. They really don't, I mean, they are so focused on removing dams and watching Patagonia documentaries that they can't see the forest from the trees. It's like we're the only people telling the emperor that he has no clothes on. It's ludicrous to remove a water supply like this. And I think Supervisor Green's narrative is dangerous. You know, he's heard from these people that he can't tell us about how this is a foregone conclusion and the dam is coming down, and it's because it's so dangerous. I spoke to the guy who made the arbitrary decision to not drop the gates the day that it happened. And he is not a dam safety person. He was just made aware that we have gone from over a 1 in 1,000 year potential failure rate to 1 in 950 year potential rate. And he, on his own, arbitrarily decided that these gates would never come down again. And this just helps out the fish narrative. In any case, long and short of it, please stick with Plan A. Do not straddle the issue. Oppose any removal. This is modern day. Yes, we're 100 years after the dam's been built, and that's how much better our engineers are. This dam can be fixed for far less money than it would take to remove. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Next, Johanna.
Next, we have Brad Rasmussen, and I will unmute him now.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you fine.
Thank you. I'll be short, as a lot of the my concerns that I would state are already included in the board's letter, as well as by other comments that have come in. But this is a very important issue. I appreciate the county and the board's work on putting a lot of thought into the serious concerns and impacts that would occur in our county and in that community to its people and wildlife, and environmental impacts as well. So I support the board sending this letter off as soon as possible to get these comments on record. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Johanna, who's next?
That concludes the hands in Zoom.
Oh, I thought there was a lot of hands in Zoom. Okay. Just want to check in real quick, both on Zoom and in the chamber. Any further public comments before we go ahead and close public comment?
I just got one more from Frank Lynch.
And we're going to wait, Frank. We have somebody in the board chambers who's already walking to the microphone. I do not want them to go back to their seat.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Carvalho. I also moved out here about 2.5 years ago. I live in Potter Valley. I actually quit my career in healthcare and I took up farming, and I've been gardening and spending a lot of time out in nature. And I was actually farming at the Seabiscuit Ranch. There's a few gardens out there. And at that time, PG&E was out there doing a project where they were basically removing a bunch of ancient oak trees that are on on those grounds, and removing them so that they could, in their definition, protect their from fires with their electrical lines. And to me, on a regular basis, from the time I wake up to the time I'm complete with my work, I'm hearing chainsaws, and there's absolutely no regard for the oak trees there. And these are trees that are endangered currently. And when I'm observing this and also speaking to the men with chainsaws, their whole thing around it is, I'm just doing my job. This is what I'm paid to do. So at the end of the day, just like in healthcare or whatever job you have, you're doing it because you're feeding your family. Consequently, the people are the ones who are suffering. The environment are the ones who are suffering. And PG&E, can simply say, oh, it's too much money for us to keep this dam going. And at the end of the day, we're the ones who are going to pay. We're the ones who are going to have to deal with it. So my question is, are there actual environmentalists who are on this that are able to present an alternative that might not have anything to do with their option B, C, whatever we want to call it? Because as we can see, it's all around money, and it has been for millennia. When are we going to change how we approach these things? Are we always going to be rooted in money and greed, or is something going to change? Is someone going to stand up and speak for the environment?
And your 3 minutes are up at this moment.
I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. And I think, unfortunately, PG&E is winning the money game. And there was another hand up in, Frank Lynch, online.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for holding the hearing today. PG&E's letter, it's kind of cynical. They put out a minimal effort and just are going along with the process to see what they can get away with. It's a very minimalist approach to trying to get information out to the public, and it's almost insulting in that they didn't respond to any true remediation that would be forthcoming. That's obvious it would have to come forth through the environmental process. I would just one note very quickly to Supervisor Green, be careful when you cite the Friends of the Eel as providing the most detailed information on seismic concerns, that they have a pretty jaded perspective. I mean, people can say that about me too, but I think they do have a track record of having a pretty jaded perspective on anything to do with Scott Dam. And my final comment would be, I guess, this is a regional asset, and it needs a regional response. And is there any, I mean, maybe I'm grasping at straws, but is there any outreach that could be done to, say, the Department of Water Resources or Bureau of Reclamation or Army Corps to have this facility become part of a regional water supply that could be provided for the whole of the north of the state, that would keep it as the asset as it is to Lake County, but also incorporate it into a more California response to global warming. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. I do want to respond to that last one. It does need to be a regional solution. It cannot be solved by one. We've already seen some take an attempt of taking over the dam, and the costs were just prohibitive. As far as getting DWR, we are sitting down with DWR, just met with Department of Water Resources again for the 5th, 6th time in the last 2 or 3 months yesterday. It's difficult to speak with our state departments who pretty much already are in the belief that this is a done deal. So we're doing everything we can to try to bring up new concepts, new reasons as to why they really need to review these things. Just to kind of try to succinctly put it, not only obviously the damage to the Lake Pillsbury area and those that have properties there, that one's just obvious as to what the impacts would be. But we believe, based especially in the last 10 years of drought that we've experienced, that there will be no water to divert more often than not, especially during drought seasons. And so how are they going? Is the Eel River going to be dry up until it reaches Humboldt? Is the Russian River fork going towards Lake Mendocino going to be dry and Lake Mendocino dry? We've all seen it. For some reason that does not seem to carry much logic with them, nor do they seem to agree that climate change will only get exacerbated and more severe weather as we keep going. So, I mean, they agree, but they don't agree that it will have stability issues, again, for the 600,000 people that rely on drinking water. When Supervisor Crandall and myself did our last stand at the Russian River Forum, we did have water districts come up to us and share those same comments, but those were small water districts and not even close to the size of inland water from Mendocino or Sonoma Water in Sonoma County, who seem to have a plan up their sleeve onto how they're going to continue to provide water. And I'd hate to even ask what the cost will be to the taxpayers to recreate another situation of water storage somewhere else rather than working together to keep this one. So it's been a very difficult conversation to have because it is an uphill battle to try and get our points heard, let alone having people think about what we say and maybe come back with a different perspective. That perspective has not changed. I will also say that somebody mentioned Huffman. It is very strange that we had a letter from Congressman Garamendi, who represented Lake Pillsbury at the time, that said he did not want the dam to come down, but yet another congressman was working to take it down, not even within their own district. I try to imagine myself doing that to Supervisor Crandall, trying to make changes in his district without telling him, even though he's against those changes. That would be a very weird situation with my colleagues, but yet that's what's happening in DC. They care more about the checkbox on their list of I took down a dam, look at me, versus that's not in my backyard. I probably shouldn't do something there, or I should at least open up conversation with my colleagues to see what we can do. So this whole situation has been very strange, and we're going to keep going. Supervisor Crandall.
Yeah, I'd like to add, I wanted to mention, I realized too, Mr. Reed, you made some comments too, but I wanted to let you know that I understand why you probably haven't been able to hear our history on this, because it's not posted on the Potter Valley website, Potter Valley Two Basin Solution. It's not posted on Eel Russian River Commission. You have to do a deep dive, and at times you can't even find that information. You don't have a lot of information on the Russian River Water Forum either. So all you're getting is what you can get from us here or the articles. And so I actually understand why you had, and I wasn't trying to come off a specific way, and I apologize if it seemed that way, but I realized afterwards you wouldn't even have any information because it's not out there unless you read Press Democrat or whatever we can get out, right? So, but just a little bit more history. When I came on in 2019, the previous Supervisor Steele had been saying the same things we're saying, and basically going back and forth with Congressman Huffman in those Potter Valley Project Two Basin Solution forums. And one of the main arguments that he had is of course the fish situation, and that the dam is needed for the cool water flow. And I've said this a lot of times, but I'm going to say it again. The dam is needed for the cool water flow to save the salmonids, and they're saying that they're going to not prosper with the dam gone, right? So our argument has been that, but we also seen it come to fruition when Cal Trout asked FERC to urge PG&E to raise the gates in order to save the salmonids, because they're taking high mortality rates due to the temperature rising in that water. And we weren't even given the opportunity or email to comment or say, hey, yeah, we agree, we've been saying this, or anything. It had to be given to us from an outside source. And so just that's another example of why a lot of people don't know what's going on, or also of how things are being circumvented around us. And other agencies that we've met with always ask us to urge Lake Pillsbury Alliance, because they've always been, and I want to highlight how instrumental they've played. They've been the heavy hitter on this with all the information. They've been doing this for years. They came to me right away when I was elected and let me know about this. And so, but the other groups have been asking us, hey, get them on board with the fact that decommissioning is coming down. We're like, no, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, that's not what we do, so we don't agree, and that's not fair. Like Supervisor Sabatier said, all of this information that they're putting forward is not giving a true democratic approach, because they're not giving another side the opportunity to weigh in their perspective. And it's just a blessing today that we don't have Friends of the Eel here coming forward and marginalizing every little statement that we make, and budding us or whatever, or, all lives mattering us, or whatever you want to call it, in the chambers. And so, lastly, I'll say this. A majority, if not all dams, are structurally not sound. And so this dam's being magnified due to the interests at hand. And so basically, it's just like waiting for a will after someone passes and going like this, what are we going to get? Let's not listen to them. And so I just, I had to say that because of a lot of the comments, and I appreciate the comments because everybody here came with real life feelings and care about this. So I'll stop there and thank you all.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Green.
I get where they may come across as buts, but just because people share uncomfortable facts and truths and kind of tailor it in their goal set doesn't mean those uncomfortable truths are not relevant. We've known for years this is coming down. We don't have to like this JPA that got formed recently. I certainly don't like how it got formed, and I was surprised to hear of the addition of the 2 new members. But but they made their bed and they're going to lie in it, and that bed does not involve Scott Dam at this point. Rather, they appear comfortable to work with PG&E on their downstream diversion, and in their current proposal do not have any interest in saving Scott Dam. So really, it's going to come down to a Plan A that would involve a new notice of intent filed by a different regional entity to do something else with the dam. And I don't know why anybody would do that, because again, if one of the major goals of the dam is to improve water supply, but the downstream water supply people don't want it, I don't know that that's a big economic benefit, and I don't know how we would recoup any costs from that. And I also think it is, I don't have to like it, but I do think we have to start messaging appropriately. The preponderance of available evidence suggests that dam removal is, if it is not inevitable, it is certainly more probable than not. And absent the current ability to bring forward a new NOI party, to bring forward a funded project that would not only address issues like seismic safety and water supply and sediment removal, but also address some of the things that are subject of current litigation, including fish passage. You know, the die may be cast. And even for PG&E's role, I mean, if they don't want to operate an unprofitable dam operation, and they take similar actions elsewhere. I mean, the history of hydropower in California is long and fraught, and I think the die is cast on that as well. So I think it's okay if PG&E decides to cut its losses in certain respects, but as this letter before us here says, if you're going to do that, guess what? You better not throw out the community with the dam water. And so there's lots to unpack here, but I just want to start messaging. I think we're going to probably sooner than later start having to focus on the idea of environmental mitigation and other things as really being the proper focus, but we're not quite there yet. We do have to have some ongoing talks. There is plenty of information that I still don't know about and that people in the community don't know about, because there is a lot of stuff going on, some of it going on behind closed doors. So for all it covers and all that it doesn't cover, I think it is important that this letter gets sent today, so I'll be supporting it.
Okay. Supervisor Gray?
Lastly, you know, I hear you on the information that's said about, you know, specific entities, especially with regard to Friends of the Eel. They stand to benefit, and so they're naturally going to bias towards whatever it's, you know, their concerns of the fish are. They're going to get a chance to study why the fish aren't surviving, even though we've talked about that. We've mentioned climate change. The Berryessa Snow Mountain is not providing enough snow cap, you know, groundwater recharge. You know, we all know that, but they're not talking about it because they know once the dam comes down, they can study why the fish aren't surviving, even though there'll be no water in their streams for them to survive. And, you know, we've all brought forward concerns and ideals that benefit or will affect them. They never once did that with us. I don't feel like they have. They've basically just said, yeah, but we've said no. We want you to have groundwater recharge. We want to ensure you have the opportunity to do specific things. We want you to understand that it's not just the dam that's the person, or the, not person, but the stepchild that's the problem. It's also logging. It's also illegal grows, and all sorts of other, you know, effects, you know, like sediment that's still built up, things like that, clearing the streams. And so none of that's brought up. It's just the dam. It's just the dam over and over again, and there is no concern or thought of Lake County. It's just them. And we've said we want to ensure you don't have this issue as well. So there's this just back to bias, and so I'll stop there.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments. While, yes, there is momentum for Plan B, I I don't believe this body plans on giving up on Plan A. So we will continue. That way we're well positioned for no matter what happens, because there's no way I want this county to be in a position where the dam does come down and we don't have a plan of what to do if it came down. We have to be ready for both. That's the smart thing to do. But we will not be giving up on Plan A in the foreseeable future that I can say. At least that's been the will of the board so far. We'll see where it goes as we keep going. But I do have a letter here. We've gotten a lot of comments. We did get some amendments that were read by Mr. Sullivan, looking to see if there's a motion on the table.
Mr.
We have more public comment in Zoom.
Well, the things I can't see. How many hands do we have?
3.
Okay, let's go.
All right. The first one is Manya. I have unmuted you, Manya, if you can. There you go.
I just wanted to speak to the diversion into Potter Valley and how important that is also. 102 years ago, my maternal grandparents left Potter Valley after an 8-year stay because farming without dependable water made agriculture difficult. Just a few years later, the tunnel project brought Eel River water into Potter Valley and transformed the quality of life for the fortunate residents who remained. In 1985, my family moved to the Eel River Valley near Potter Valley, and I taught elementary school for 25 years in Potter Valley. Now I'm retired and live with my husband across the road from the Cape Horn Dam. The Eel River has been and is definitely an important part of our lives. The river is a year-round source of natural beauty for us. We thrive on the study of bird, animal, and plant life it hosts. We kayak its waters and swim in its pools. The consistent flow of the stream, intelligently managed at Scott Dam, has worked extremely well to provide a rich environment for innumerable species around Lake Pillsbury and along the river. It brings great joy to the human soul. In 2017, I witnessed fire suppression aerial teams dipping tons of Eel River water to fight the raging wildfires. That critical water supply was available thanks to the wise management of Lake Pillsbury. The tunnel project is quite an amazing piece of man's creation. It opened up vast agricultural and recreational areas to human development. Pulling out the dam at this time in history does not make sense. It would remove the foundation under the lives of vast numbers of people who depend on the water for both agriculture and recreation. And I'm curious as to why not more of the agricultural and people on the downstream side of this aren't making a louder noise. I'm deeply concerned about the removal of Scott Dam, and my research about the Eel River tells me that the river dried up considerably during historic times long ago when there were drought conditions, and I don't know why the Friends of the Earth can't read their history. What's to stop it from happening again if the dam is removed? How does that benefit the populations as you have expressed? And more importantly, how does that benefit the lives of the hundreds of thousands of residents in the not only Lake, but Mendocino, Sonoma, and Marin counties? We need to do whatever we can, whatever it takes to improve the system that has been created, to improve it, not to take it down. And it has worked
your 3
for
minutes,
98 years.
And your 3 minutes
it's not
are
to
up.
be torn down, and we certainly support all that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next, Johanna, please.
Next is Ray. It looks like Ray has two profiles up. Okay, there. Ray, can you unmute?
Let's go ahead and move on to the third hand. We'll try Ray again.
Okay, next we have Aaron.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Aaron Sykes. I'm a property owner in Lake County. And I guess my comment is more of a question. Earlier, it was mentioned that the county had been talking with DWR. With DWR giving out about $2 million in grants for water storage last year, I was wondering if the county had approached them for a grant regarding Scott Dam.
So we are actually having conversations about grant funding now. The offer on the table is not for water storage or rehabilitation of the dam. It is for other purposes still within the context of our plans for Lake Pillsbury. But we are at the table talking to them about how to finance some of the studies that we need to do in order to ensure that we are providing the right information to the public and Sonoma County on the dangers of this possibility.
Great, thank you.
You wanted to add to that?
Oh, no.
I heard. Let's see if Ray is available.
Still not getting anything.
All right. I would say, Ray, I'm going to go ahead and close down public comment unless there's another hand that popped up. Johanna?
Yeah, we have Galaxy Tab A7.
Let's hope it's Ray.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Carrie Shattuck, and I'm running for Mendocino County 1st District Supervisor. And I feel that is a huge travesty that Lake County has not been included in these negotiations and the potential for loss of Lake Pillsbury. I've spent many years out there myself, enjoying it. And, we talk about how we need to have more water storage in California and moving forward with, the climate. And I just think I just shake my head at it, that this is the point that we're at and that you guys have not been included in this. And I feel that we need to keep Lake Pillsbury as much as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I think Mendocino would benefit just as much as we would. And if there's no further hands up, Johanna?
No, just Ray. So if he wants to submit public comment on e-comment, he can do that.
Okay, or just reach out to one of us and let us know your thoughts. And I'm going to go ahead and close down public comment. Supervisor Crandall?
I was ready to make the motion.
Let's do it.
Ready. So I'll motion to approve submittal of public comments in response to PG&E's initial draft surrender application and conceptual decommissioning plan as amended with corrections.
Going to second. Do have a discussion point. So at this point, it's a submission directly to PG&E, and was there interest or ability to consider this at a separate time for a FERC filing as well? Is there any benefit to that?
This letter was drafted in direct response to PG&E's request. I don't know if FERC will accept comments during this time or not.
Staff can look into that further. I know that on the what was the proposed schedule submitted by PG&E as it relates to the draft and all the way through the finalization of the surrender decommissioning plan and afterwards that FERC approved. At this particular stage, it is a submission to PG&E, but there may be an opportunity to include this in future filings with FERC.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So we have a motion from Supervisor Crandall and a second from Supervisor Green. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I do want to say again, Lake Pillsbury Alliance, you have been the fire at our feet. You are definitely holding us accountable, always letting us know any time a step is taken in any of the process. I just want to share my appreciation for all that you do, the communication you have with us. It is absolutely appreciated. You are a great partner. Thank you.